I mention it every time now. All right, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, August the 22nd, 2024. What do you think about that? September around the corner, John.
It's unbelievable. And pumpkin spice is coming.
Is it out?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, you can't get me excited like that, man.
It's coming. It's coming.
I
think it's already at Dunkin'. So.
I love all of the pumpkin spice. I'm one of those freaks that's just like constantly has, pumpkin spice tea, pumpkin spice latte, pumpkin spice
everything.
Pancakes are amazing with pumpkin in it.
Yes, I agree.
Right? You ever had pumpkin with in pancakes?
I sure have.
Yeah, all
so
right.
it's good.
It hadn't come up. Are we up yet? Actually,
Yeah.
Now my stomach's growling.
So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. Before we turn the mics on for the regular show that you hear on the podcast, atmosphere, we're going to be talking about willpower today. So the questions that we're going to be pondering are: what are some areas in your life where you struggle with willpower? How can I strengthen or weaken my own willpower? And what are limitations to willpower? So I think it's going to be a fun conversation, John.
I think so, too.
Traditional substance abuse field topic here, though, isn't it?
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
so.
It is.
That's where my brain goes with the topic willpower, to be honest with you.
Well, mine tends to go into religiosity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Willpower, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We have different angles on this.
Well, I'm from a different, I have that theological aspect.
Oh,
to
yeah, you're
education.
You're Chappie.
So, yeah.
I just love thinking of John Pope as Chappie. That's why I like to think of you. So this is before we turn the mics on. It's a good way to interact with us. About 6:15, we turn on the YouTube live for you to join us. Please tell your friends, because we're trying to build up the YouTube subscribers. You just go to YouTube, find Through a Therapist's Eyes, click the subscribe. Have a friend do that. If you've already clicked, have your mom, have your dad, get at least one other person. Truly, if we could double that in 1 week, that would be amazing. That is our goal, though, to grow. That's your job. Not your job, their job.
That's right.
Not your job, John. It's their job listening.
That's exactly right. But we can encourage you and be as interesting as we possibly can.
Right.
So that you all will be motivated to put us on YouTube.
John's got his coffee ready. John's got his energy up. John's had a great day. John's ready to go, right?
Yes, that's right. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Neil, where we at, brother? All right, ready to go, he says. He's got a mic this afternoon, too, because we are without Victoria, so we'll see if he chimes in or how he chimes in.
You got your timer ready?
Yep, timer. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I'm your host, Chris Gazdick, on August the 22nd, 2024. Hanging out here with Mr. John Pope, almost September.
Oh, that's right. It's pumpkin spice season.
You said that before the mugs come on,
That's
and I
right.
was now we're both stuttering. And
Yes,
you excited me because I haven't thought about pumpkin spice yet.
Oh, well, that's what my wife lives for it.
I am excited with your wife. Joy and I are going to have some pumpkin spice lattes every day for the first week of September. All right, Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get insights directly from a panel of therapists. This week is only John and I. Victoria is finishing up her summer fun in the mountains. This is where you get insight in your home or your car, but not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Know that this is, what am I saying? Know that this is what? YouTube lives, subscribe, click, 5 stars. John gets upset if you don't do
They got to do
5
5 stars. Exactly.
We have the book coming out in December. Very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Marriage book, volume 2, Through a Therapist's Eyes, re-understanding your marriage and becoming your best as a spouse.
Exactly.
Yep. And it's bigger than the first one, John.
Yeah, I could tell that.
I must have had a lot more to say.
That's right. It's even a larger frame, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's quite a bit larger
YouTube
than
Live. I don't think that I've showed it yet. That is the picture of the book.
And I like the eye color.
Yeah, it's green.
Yeah.
So
For envy.
Green for envy in marriage?
No.
That's bad. That's not good.
Well, that's the cause of a lot of problems in marriage.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, green-eyed envy.
We should have just made it a red eye. How about that?
That's I'm hungover.
I'm stressed out and red-eyed angry is what I'm thinking. Anyway, contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is an email to check out with us. We love to hear from you. We get good thoughts. We share them back and forth. Sometimes we put them on a show. So this is the human emotional experience which we endeavor to fit together. Figure out together. God, what's wrong with me today? I've been waiting for 2 hours to do this show. I had a really lazy afternoon, and now I can't talk right. What's going on?
I don't know.
You want to switch drinks? You can have my Propel. I'll take the coffee there.
Well, no, I need the coffee real bad. Yeah, you turned the aircon off, and so I had to, and I was going like this. And I love my clients, but when
it's hot for a therapist at the end of the day, it's rough, isn't it?
It is. I needed that stimulation. I need that caffeine.
You've seen his eyes went wide, guys,
I'm a
on
Java
YouTube.
junkie.
When I suggested we switch, his eyes went wider than I think I've ever seen. Here's some 3 questions to ponder while we talk today. What are some areas in your life where you struggle with willpower? How can I strengthen or weaken my own willpower? And what are limitations to willpower? So, kind of upping my game in the 3 ponder questions a little bit, John.
Yes.
Those are involved questions, aren't they?
They definitely are. And I'm thinking particularly the last 2, and as far as weakening my willpower.
How do we weaken that? Yeah.
Yeah, because that sounds like that's almost a choice, a volitional choice.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like there is a huge theme. Okay, let's do a confession. We did this before the mics were on, and I made the statement that I really come at this whole topic from a substance abuse traditional therapy background. That's kind of where my mind comes, and I want to weave it into the show for sure today because you know how willpower is a big part of substance abuse treatment. But you come at it from a different angle. How do you come at
I come
the
at
topic?
From a theological or religious aspect or understanding.
Yeah, that's just where your brain floods.
Yeah. I think that's how I'm wired.
And so we're going to add and talk about this topic. John, I hope we can talk about this in a way where maybe you're not overwhelmed with the religious aspects and I'm not overwhelmed with the substance abuse aspect, because willpower is a broader theme, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like, as a matter of fact, the definitions I'll throw in now, we had other words, right? Like determination, strength of will, strength of character, firmness of purpose, fixity of purpose. What is that word?
Firmness of fixity of purpose.
Fixity of purpose. Is that a word? Did I come up with that? I don't know what I even said. Fixity. That's a weird word.
Well, I think I hadn't heard that, but I'm going to go with it.
I think I created a word, brother.
It's a word.
It is a word? Okay, Neil says it's a word. He's on the mic today.
Yeah, it's a word. The state of being unchanging or permanent. So
but that's
permanent
also firmness.
Yes.
Firmness.
So I probably could have just said firmness of purpose.
Resolution, resolve.
Resoluteness and purposefulness. Anyway, those are the other words. So there really are. I mean, this is about, the whole theme of, empowerment and having agency over your life and feeling in control. These types of things is willpower. But from a substance abuse perspective, I'll clamor in about how this is taken on, in my mind, a negative word, willpower, because it gets people in trouble and it does get weakened, and there's a purposefulness about it. Yeah. So what do you think?
Because I was thinking, and so when you brought that up in terms of substance use, I'm going, well, that's part of the issue with somebody that would have to use the willpower. They're going to make themselves stop drinking, for example, or using.
Which is a bad idea. It doesn't work well.
No, because you do just the opposite.
It's the whole nature of the illness. So that's my angle. That's what we talk about.
And you beat the crap out of yourself.
Horrible shame.
Yeah.
Horrible shame developed, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not used to Neil being around. You had the mic. Okay, you're gonna have to signal me or whatever because we put him on since Victoria wasn't here, and I thought he might be interested in this topic, so he's got a mic, but I don't know how to cue you in. The man behind the curtain is with us.
I'll just speak up if I have to.
Okay.
So it's okay.
Good. All right, John. What do you think about this topic, willpower? I guess we've kicked it around a little bit as far as our angle on it. Do you work with this in therapy much?
Yes, particularly with my substance use clients.
Does it come up with out of the substance abuse
It does.
center? Does it?
It does, but it also there's a lot of guilt with my clients, and they say, "Well, I tried to stop, and I failed. I slipped.
Okay, that's true.
But I also do it with negative thinking. Sometimes when I have clients that, well, I need to stop thinking negatively, and if I just will myself to do it, I'll and be positive, then I'll change my attitude.
Okay.
And then I have another is like food.
I was just going to
That's
say
a
that
big
does come
one.
up with food. Yeah, a lot.
And that's one of the things I struggle with.
Food and other behavioral types of things we're trying to do goal setting and other behavioral, like hair picking and
yeah. Oh, well, I have someone that's
you have hair picking issues? No.
Actually, I do. I have one person.
With your own head.
As you can see with my head,
It's not an issue.
It's not an issue. There's none to pick.
But, by the way, that's called trichotillomania.
Yes,
those
I can't pronounce that.
You can't say trichotillomania?
Trichotillomania. Oh, I did.
You just did.
I just did, didn't I?
What do you mean you can't say trichotillomania?
Well, how much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would?
I think woodchucks chuck wood, to be honest with you. I've never really understood that.
No, the other is compulsive spending or buying.
Yep. Yeah, well, like I said, behavior with
anything-
sexual behavior,
Right.
eating behavior is what people focus on a lot.
Sexual behavior.
New Year's resolutions and behavior changes and that sort of thing. And again, is willpower not...
And that's another subject, New Year's resolutions. Have we done that yet?
I mean, eventually, we
Yeah,
usually do holiday stuff, and have fun with that. But I don't know. It's interesting. Do you advocate for the use of willpower and developing willpower, or are you kind of like me? I have a bend towards avoiding trying to rely on willpower.
That's my bend.
Yeah.
I because I don't think willpower works necessarily.
Oh, that's a bold statement. Go further.
Oh my goodness! I'm always going to get in trouble with you.
Go further,
Okay.
please. No, he's not in trouble. That's great.
I think you do the intentionality, and you say, "I'm going to have willpower. I'm going to resist eating," and for example, and binge eating. And the more you do it, the more you try to say, "I'm going to use my willpower to stop." The more you do, and the more that you end up caving into it.
So it's almost a negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? Negative feedback loop. Yeah, that's interesting. So we are bending the same way, and I guess to challenge both of us then, can it not be a positively used tool?
Well,
can willpower not be positive? Why are we so negative
about willpower?
Well,
in terms of philosophy, you have the will to power, or which would be Nietzsche, for example.
Okay,
or existential.
You have to explain these things. I don't know what you're talking about.
Nietzsche was he was a German, very unhappy guy, but very brilliant, in the latter part of the 19th century. And he talked about Mensch and Übermensch, man and Superman, for example,
okay.
and where you get in trouble with that is that to be a superior man, you had to think certain ways and do and discipline yourself and overcome obstacles, and so you used your willpower to attain goals.
I don't know Nietzsche. Does he have a niche?
Nietzsche, yeah, no, that's,
Did
yeah.
he have a
Well, he
Nietzsche?
said that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
Oh, is that the guy?
That's the guy.
Oh, I know the phrase.
Yeah.
Didn't know the guy.
It's used in existentialism, too, and there's some truth to it.
And you mentioned something else?
You mean Ubermensch?
Ubermensch, yes.
Yeah, that's Superman.
Oh, that's the...
Man and Superman.
That's
yeah.
part. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's interesting. Yeah, you go back to philosophers and, theological thinkers. Now we call them, content creators and thought leaders. This has been, I never thought about that. Is a thought leader the same thing as a philosopher?
Nietzsche was anti-religious and anti-Christian, and so he said that the Christians would give in and were very weak because the contradiction is it's in weakness that there's strength in the Christian faith.
Neil, he just blew off my cool thought. I'll ask you to see how you'll respond.
Okay.
Is this the same thing, old-time philosophers to new age thought leaders? Is that the same thing?
Well,
How
I think
about
I
that?
was answering yes, but
Were you?
I mean, I think yes. The biggest difference to me is like a lot of the thought leaders sometimes they've done something, and so they have that clout. But I feel like philosophers just always sit around and think. So there's
The
like
thought leaders are
right.
cooler.
Yeah,
No,
thought leaders
Descartes,
actually.
I think therefore I am.
Right, exactly. So I think thought leaders are a little bit interesting because there's some stuff behind it. The thought leaders are ones they've grown a business, and then this is how they thought to get to that point, or they've done something, or they I don't know. I think there's more
so
practice
it's
behind philosophers.
So what's Arachnid? What the hell's his name? What's a famous philosopher?
Aristotle.
Aristotle. So Aristotle didn't do anything, Neil.
I don't know. Did he?
Well, he wrote about the natural world.
All he did is think, though. I think
he was
Neil's
a
point is
brilliant
like
man.
thought leaders do stuff in the world, and then they talk about it.
And today's thought
philosophers
leaders.
haven't done anything, and it's probably true.
Pliny the Elder. So,
All right, willpower is the ability to control one's own actions, emotions, or urges. So I really feel like, we've been on a little bit of a kick with something called emotional intelligence, and that is a theme that we've talked about to really get, geared into being well and building ourselves on Maslow's needs and, having a sense of yourself and being able to execute control over yourself with actions and emotions. I mean, that sounds like emotional intelligence to me. So if you're of a higher level of EI, like we were talking about a few weeks ago, you probably have a decent sense of willpower. But there's another definition of strong determination that allows one to do something difficult. So there's a difficult component.
that would be the Nietzsche thing.
Is that the Nietzsche component? Okay, that's part of his philosophical perspective.
Right.
That sets man apart and women from doing different things, which requires like this extra drive. So might we think of willpower as being like an extra on top of what you do to be well or successful? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then we looked at these other words to think about, like agency and in control and internal locus of control. Like there are lots of themes around this idea. Which do you think? Here's a random question. Which do you think people are most familiar with? Do they know what agency is, or do they know what empowerment is? I mean, empowerment's a big thing nowadays.
Yeah. Agency is more in-house for us, isn't it?
It's probably a clinical term. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about it, but I don't know. How
But
many Joes and
empowerment is
Janes out there are like, I have agency over myself today. It's a wonderful day.
I think I
happens.
talked about and this is the thing is that I'm old enough to remember when empowerment really was a thing and a word, and it was from the late 60s, early 70s. And we can talk about Black Power, for example.
Black Power, women,
women's movement, yeah. So
liberty.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but agency is kind of like
A weird word.
Weird word, yeah.
So I think people are familiar with the concept of empowerment, and willpower is a big piece of that. So, can it be limited? Is it limited? Do we have? I mean, we'll talk about things that drain, our willpower per se, because there are really significant drains that we want to avoid to this.
Oh yeah.
Is it? Can we think of it as unlimited willpower? And if we can't, why not? Like it's a weird concept.
Yeah. Well, I think that life's experiences. I mean, there's sometimes being, let's say you're born in poverty and there's no education and there's drugs in the household, and it just seems like there's so much going against you. It's trauma. It's hard to even be able to develop power to begin with, or to say that I have a sense of myself that I could empower myself or be empowered to overcome those barriers.
I have a confession. There is a statement that sometimes people will make. It has been made to me in professional circles. So I'm not stepping on any toes, don't want to point anybody out, but I feel like behind the scenes, therapists have a danger of thinking this way. And I've heard it from people kind of as well. The statement is, John, have you ever had anybody say to you, because I have had people say to me this, other therapists when we're consulting or whatever, oh, yeah, Jane, she's the one. I remember her. She doesn't want to get well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I say, no.
You don't like it either.
I don't like it either.
Yeah. It's always bothered me. And
see, they're giving up, basically.
Yeah.
You're not advocating. See, I'm getting
got you on that one, didn't
you're
I?
Not. Yeah.
Either the coffee kicked in or John's got some
You're not
feelings on this one.
advocating for your client. You're not believing in your client's ability to get well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the statement. And I think it comes from sort of an edge with this where with the concept of willpower, you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Now, I've given you things in therapy to do, and you haven't done them. Therefore, dangerous thinking is you don't want to get well.
Well, it's a syllogism. I mean, it's just
incongruent, isn't it?
Incongruent, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like if willpower is limited, which I will make the statement, I think we've agreed it kind of is. We also alluded to the fact that there can be things that are draining, and you just pointed out through eloquently saying, I mean, you may have a substance abuse family, you may not have been, may have been neglected, you may, not have had really great education, or a plethora of things can be in the way. And the thing is if that's the case, then how can we expect people to have developed a strong sense or ability of willpower? Now, there is accountability, but there's just a balance between, having willpower and having accountability and doing the things that you need to do for yourself while recognizing sometimes people are unable to yet.
Right.
As they're building and growing, will build that ability. But we got to be careful about shaming people, I think.
That's a big thing. I was thinking, whether you agree with them or not, J.D. Vance, for example, coming back from his background, he didn't have much of a chance.
Right.
But he also had people that believed in him and gave him those opportunities to excel. But he had to develop his willpower over a period of time. But he took that opportunity. But that doesn't mean that given another situation, he would not have done it. In other words, celebrate it when it happens, but also know that it's no judgment and no negative judgment when somebody isn't able to do it.
So for around the world, J.D. Vance is in the States. We've learned a lot about him recently because he is a running mate for Donald Trump. We're having this big election here. I guess, when is this election coming up? I have
November
no idea.
7th. It's 75 days from now.
It is coming soon.
Yeah.
And he's got a great story that he's been able to share, being nominated as the vice president on the Republican side. being from Southern Ohio, substance abuse family.
It's
probably
considered
a lot of
Appalachia.
Yeah, it's considered Appalachia, but I'm mad at him, John, because JD didn't say anything about West Virginia when he was talking about that in his speech, but I'll just let that go.
Well, he didn't say anything about Kentucky either,
Or Kentucky, which are the two true Appalachian spaces, right?
The true Appalachia.
Hatfield and McCoy's, you and I, right?
Yeah, that's
he
exactly
didn't even mention
right.
either
We'd
of
be
us.
shooting, go across the river, the Big Tug River, and then
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So, but you're saying he's a good example of that he became successful, but there are a lot of people in his situation that didn't have the abilities.
Well, I grew up
installed.
with some folks like that, and there is a lot of judginess about folks that don't make it. But I think instead of complaining about this, is that you celebrate those that are able to excel, and maybe you can develop more people to have more chances in their lives.
I think there's an example of this, and Neil, I want to come to you actually because I want to tap your brain because I think you have some thoughts about this, and I'm really curious what they are. But so gather them together, I guess, if you haven't already. And an example of this, honestly, is I forget her name. I'm starting to get names of guests in the show from long ago. It's terrible of me. But Neil, do you remember who was on here talking about homelessness? We had a homelessness professional.
That was before me.
No, I don't think it was.
I think it was. I don't think we talked to anyone about homelessness when I've been on it.
It was in this office, and so I do think you were here. That's crazy. That's weird. I could be wrong, but anyway, I really learned from her, guys, of the homeless population, of which I haven't worked with a lot, but there's a lot of misperceptions about how people become homeless, and those misperceptions thus have misguided societal cures and responses.
Look at it as a moral failure.
They really look at it as a moral failure, John. And the reality of this is about 30, if I'm remembering correctly, 25, 30, maybe 35% of folks are chronically homeless. And those are the people that we visualize, we think about, the military veterans, the severely disassociated mental health patients, these are chronically troubled folks that do end up in chronic homelessness. But that's a smaller percentage. The 60 or 70% even are people that are intermittently homeless. And they become homeless, I learned from her. Did you get it?
Yeah, it's Ann Jurczyk.
Ann Jurczyk, that's right. She is awesome.
Episode 150.
Episode 150. I am so sorry, Ann. What am I doing? She's a friend of the show for sure, too. I was having a brain fart, Ann. Anyway, Ms. Jurczyk taught us that basically what happens is in that moment, people get so overwhelmed that their emotional system doesn't have the capacity with even one little new problem that comes to.
Well, it's just everything's so overwhelming that
immediately.
Yeah.
Like if I went out of this office, which has happened, and my car wouldn't start, or I left my keys in the office, like I really did that one day. You remember that?
Right.
John had to come bail me out because I left the keys in the office.
And I told you no, right?
No, you did not tell me no. Your wife said, I will make him come and save you. That's what happened. But I really was overwhelmed and tripped out. A person that doesn't have the abilities installed from emotional health or wellness to problem solve just lays down because they're so, as you say, overwhelmed to the point that they become homeless.
So it's sort of like fight, flight, or freeze.
They are frozen.
Frozen.
Massively frozen. So this idea, Neil, that willpower is limited and people can be held accountable, but the challenge of, understanding limitations that they had in their life and opportunities and that they need help to gain that ability. I'm curious how you see all that.
The way that I see willpower is that and one of the things I read at one point, willpower is just like a muscle that it's something you always have to strive for and you have to improve, or it's either going to grow or it's going to shrink. And one thing that I read at one point was if you have something you struggle with, you do it in the morning because by the end of the day, your willpower will be less. So the idea of willpower being limited, I think is 100% true, but that means that, there's unlimited potential how far you can grow it. It's a discipline you have to have, but just like Chris, you doing push-ups versus squats. You struggle with push-ups over squats, and you have to work on it, right?
I have to work a lot on that, Neil. The guy hurt me this week.
Yeah, I know.
Can you lift your hands over your head?
I can lift my hands over my head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like push-ups are hard, John.
But that goes back to the same thing. Everyone has willpower, but some people don't have as much as other people, and you have to make the decision to work on it. But also, I was thinking about this while you're talking about those that go through traumatic experiences. If you get in a car wreck and you really mess up your leg, doesn't mean your leg's not there and it can't work. It's going to work less, and it's going to be harder for you to start using it. Some people go through traumatic experiences, and it really shoots their willpower down. They lost their job.
Unemployment is horrible.
It's horrible.
Great example.
So now you think about that, just like having a broken muscle or a broken bone, you have to now start from a lower level, so it's harder to get back to that willpower. But there are certain people that they rupture their ACL 3 times and they're back on the field. But there's other people that So it's that same idea. It's just willpower is something everyone has different levels to begin with. You have to decide, are you going to grow it or not? And it is limited, but you can then make it. You can, once again, it's unlimited potential.
And it will either grow or
shrink. Right. Once again, if you keep doing it, it's going to grow. You stop using it, just like muscles or anything, at my age, I can't go do the things I used to do 5 years ago, right? Because I haven't done anything. So willpower, it's up to you to decide if it's going to grow or shrink, with the idea, just like nature versus nurture. Is it hard for you or is it easy for you? Some people have a natural stubbornness, tenacity to get to the next levels. Other people like, nope, I just can't deal with it, and they have to work harder. So just like going to the gym, don't get mad at that person who's overweight because they can't do it. Sometimes it's just harder for them to get back to the gym or have that thing to go back over and over again. And that's how I see willpower.
It's interesting. Yeah, I love that. That's absolutely on point and makes my brain work.
It hurts my brain.
Does it hurt your brain?
No, he did wonderfully.
Yeah.
And because I see that at the gym all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't really thought about, I think of a lot of things in mental health on an overview that I call Tale of Two Tapes.
Uh-huh.
The biological side, genetics, exercise, nutrition, but, our bodies drive how we feel. And then the social and emotional, people have heard me say 100 times, the primary life events, the primary life relationships, and the daily stress and the grind. Like, you're talking about this being a muscle with almost a different level, where I wonder how much nature has to play in that nature nurture. And if you haven't had much of the nature help nor the nurture help, where does that leave you? I mean, like, neglected people in early ages are really, really behind the 8 ball on this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, neglected children?
Definitely.
They just don't have a chance.
Yeah. Or let's say children that are in a, let's say their siblings, and they were born successively into a substance using or abusing family.
Yeah.
And the woman is an alcoholic, and they have fetal alcohol syndrome, and they are taken out of the home, a very dysfunctional, neglectful home, and then they're placed in and adopted as a family group. They're still going to have a lot of problems, even if it's the most loving, caring, tremendously wholesome place.
Yeah.
There's still going to be some
Because
real
you started out
challenge.
with a deficit.
They start out behind, 2 or 3 miles behind
Right.
the starting line.
Yeah, I think, let me bring us back to full circle, this little segment. All of these are reasons, or developing the understanding of this, to really avoid, when you see someone struggling, it seems like they don't want to be well, as John and I have reacted to that phrase. Realize and understand, you don't know what's under the hood. Like, you don't know what they've been provided in life that either is a detriment to their willpower or that has augmented their willpower, because we all are, susceptible to our surroundings with how we engage our environment. What we're taught, what we're validated on, what we're supported with, what we're encouraged by, whom we're encouraged by. Those are all really important things to willpower. Fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement.
Right.
And I think that some of us have been very, very blessed, and I was blessed with people that were very encouraging. I do know that in my own experience, I had some struggles with my self-image, my body image, overeating, for example, and received a lot of negative feedback about that. And so I said, I'm going to have the willpower to do this. And, all I got was hungrier. So,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was people, but the good outweighed the negative.
And now I know you work out like awesomely. You're my hero in that regard, to be honest with you. And so somehow you were able to change that.
Right.
Progression or progressively adding pieces here and there.
But it took a while.
It takes a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Which is maybe another really important point. As you want to go on a journey to improve your willpower and ability to control your emotions or your behavior, that is a journey that you will build little pieces at a time. It does not come all at once. That's a curious thought. Do you guys know of anybody who's really just suddenly dramatically increased their willpower ability? I don't. I'm looking around Neil's puzzled look. I don't think I have.
Well, you could see people have dramatic weight loss, but in 6 months you're going to see them gain it back.
Yeah, that's
because something happens. They can only keep it up for so long.
It's different than motivation.
Yeah,
you can get strong doses of motivation quickly through trauma or big life events,
but discipline. Willpower.
Doing things that are hard
is a lifelong process.
Yeah,
and you have to also give yourself some grace to allow for some slips.
You got to fail.
And you got to start over again. And so that's encouragement.
Neil?
I think willpower and motivation are basically the same thing.
Do you?
Me. It's
two different words, bro.
Yeah, I know they are, but they're basically, to me, the same thing. They're both fleeting. They're both something you have to work at. You have to have that passion, and it goes back to discipline as the backup, right? Now, what I would say, when you look at those that actually have long-term willpower, it's something dramatic happens, and that reason becomes greater than whatever they're fighting against. You do have those people that I've seen people. There was that one actor guy on Varsity Blues. He was like 400 pounds, and he's ripped like a mofo. And because he finally realized, I'm tired of being that fat guy, and his willpower changed or his motivation changed, and he created stuff to. The willpower, the desire to get to that goal.
But
is
that
greater.
process probably happened years before. As he was starting, and then there was this point.
So there was a tipping point. Something went over that said his willpower, where he was, that hatred or fear of being where he was greater than the journey he went ahead, what he was looking at.
This is interesting, Neil. Let's stay here for a minute. Not really in debate, but maybe in a little bit of debate. Because... and I'm freeballing this, honestly. I haven't really thought about that. Like willpower versus motivation, are they the same things? You say yes. I think I say no. John, what do you say? Willpower and motivation? Well, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you because I'm beginning to develop a belief. I think in the moment that willpower, like you said, John, is a much longer and slower development.
Now, I would agree with that. I think motivation is something that is in the now.
In the now, it's more present.
But you got to have motivation and willpower.
And combination. So the tipping point, what it seems like, Neil, I would wonder, is this person is really building, stamina, emotional stamina, the willpower. And, that motivation, kicks in to put you over the hump. But if you don't have that development in place, the ability to manage yourself, because remember, we're talking about managing your emotions. That takes a long time to figure out how to do.
When I was in the Navy, I keep saying back when I was in the Navy,
Okay. You were in the Navy.
When I was in boot camp, we had a Marine gunnery sergeant, and he ran our butts everywhere and all that. motivation was, okay, I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to run this 6 miles
right now.
But willpower is, I need to do this all the time, because you would lose occasionally somebody.
Big difference.
That would not be able to they couldn't stay in the program. They just didn't have it. The willpower dropped out. So they had the motivation initially, but that's not going to carry you long enough.
It'll only go so far.
Yeah.
Just like your willpower.
Yeah.
Will only go so far and be drained, yes. He says with a wry smile, John.
So I think it's important. Motivation is like your kickstart, right? That's what you get, that you say, I'm going to start doing this.
That's the 5 hour. That's the Red Bull.
Right. That's your 5-hour energy, right? But then the idea is you then need to have enough motivation to start building your willpower to then move to the next thing. So while I say they're the same, the idea is that they both are something you have to work at. And that's why they say motivation will get you nowhere. It's, as John pointed out, it's the discipline. That motivation gets you to set the systems in place that then you then can be consistent going forward. And willpower is the same way. That consistency will build your willpower up.
But the systems in place, I don't know if you realize that as big a piece as it is, I feel like is a really big piece.
It's huge.
And those systems may or may not be in place. Therefore, your motivation might be high and you don't have the systems in place. Listen, this is very important for our substance abuse recovering communities, because this is where I come at with the topic where I'm very, very leery of willpower, because there doesn't tend to be, because something has control, alcohol or drugs in a person's life, enough willpower in place to overcome that. Though the systems that build willpower help you to maintain that, and if you don't have a system in willpower that helps support that and build that, you're pretty much screwed. People will die lone wolf.
Sometimes your willpower is to follow your system. You have enough willpower to say, I'm having issues. I need to go reach out to my sponsor, or I need to go to a meeting, or I need to do this. Like, the willpower is knowing that I can't handle this. Then you have to go back to your system. But the system helps take over where the willpower falls short. Right?
Correct. Yes.
And so that's super important. And that's the thing you have to understand when you do this. Going back to John's thing about grace. You're going to fail with your willpower if you don't have a system. It's just the way things are. You're going to fail when your motivation runs out.
Waxes and wanes as well.
Exactly. So those things, like I said, because of the wax and wane, you have to put other stuff. And I think we'll talk about it. Like, those systems are super important. I have my semi-alarm.
We are foreshadowing a little bit here.
I set my alarm clock for 6, and I have to be at the gym at 6:15. What I do there, I don't know. But if I have that system, then I'm at the gym at 6:15, or in John's case, at 7:30 every night on the Stairmaster, waiting for him to break one, because I swear every time I'm there, he's there for like an hour and a half.
I've broken them.
You broke them in?
Yeah.
I hate the stair steppers.
So,
I'm more of the elliptical guy.
Right. Discipline. Systems. John has it and he goes. If he didn't have that, he probably would not be as mobile and agile as he is, right?
It's actually a really good example of last night. I really, really, really did not want to do my Wednesday workout. I mean, I went home and I laid down in bed and I really contemplated, like, I don't want to do this. And it's the first Wednesday that I would have missed in about a year, okay? And I went, John.
Good.
I went, all right?
There you go.
I was very happy with myself. But it went because actually I had a reward in place for my sushi, the after-workout reward. God, it helped me, because I had a weak moment last night, for sure. So
why anybody would be motivated by sushi is beyond me.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. That doesn't motivate me.
My daughter would kill for it, and I'm going,
it's my Wednesday reward, man. It's wonderful. Okay, why do we care? We've alluded to this. So really, this helps as you hear us talking about it, actually. I mean, we covered a lot of the foreshadowing. We covered some of the things we wanted to get to, because achieving long-term goals, that's a crucial part of what willpower and motivation and the combination will do. Habit formation. This is why willpower matters. What habits are you forming? Mental and physical health. We talk about emotional resiliency a lot. This is right in there, with making sure that your health. You're not going to have a lot of willpower if your health is really shot. It makes it hard, as Neil was talking about. Right?
Yeah. You see sometimes, because we've talked a lot about gyms, okay? You see people that are really cut. I mean, they have the 12-pack and all of that. Most of them are, I do too. I never could do that. And so if you have an unrealistic standard for yourself, sometimes you don't have the genetics for it, but you could still be very disciplined. And so one of the dangers is to compare yourself to others in an unfavorable way, because that'll sap the willpower. That'll sap the motivation.
That will drain your willpower if you are playing social media and looking at how everybody else is doing these awesome things in the gym and in their health and meeting their goals and setting up their personal trainers and all the stuff, right?
Right.
I just suddenly felt bad about myself. Although
That's
I have
exactly
a physical
right.
trainer.
Yeah.
Don't laugh at me, John.
No.
Don't laugh on the inside.
Some of us need them.
Ouch! I do need him, and he does awesome for me.
Yeah.
He made me do push-ups, John.
I'm scared of them. So
They are terrifying.
Yeah,
I never know what he's going to have me doing. He never has me doing the same thing. Makes me do planks also, Neil. I don't like those either.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's on plank on a little board that moves. It's like a half oval, and I got to hold it. It's freaking very unstable. All right. Other reasons why we care about willpower is interpersonal relationships, managing emotion, avoiding impulsive decisions, resolving conflicts, agreements, that turn into habits because we have expectations that get created. We have some overlaps. That this internal ability to manage your emotions and have strength with controlling your behavior and willpower is huge with all of those things.
Marshmallow test. Remember that?
I do. I love it as a classic psychological study. John, break us down.
No, you know it better than I do.
I don't, actually. It's been a long time. So
I was looking in terms of like some kids are able to, at an age of 5 o'clock.
Well, back up. What was the marshmallow test? You got it as well as I do.
No. Neil, you got it.
Wow.
The marshmallow test is they set a young child, I don't know what the ages were with the study, but
they were 5.
5 years old, and they put them at a table and they put a marshmallow in front of them. And then what they do is they say, okay, we're going to leave the room. If you don't eat the marshmallow, when we get back, we'll give you 2 or something along those lines. So basically the idea is if you don't touch it, you'll get something as a reward, right? So they left the room. I don't know how long the study was, like 15 minutes. I don't know what the math was, but the idea was some kids made it, some kids didn't. Some ate it immediately, some did not. So what they did is then they followed these people 20 years down the road or whatever it was, and basically they found out that those that actually waited would do
delayed
better in
gratification.
career, right. They would do better in careers or jobs, or they would accomplish certain goals. So there was this commonality that even as a 5-year-old who had the willpower at that age.
I didn't know they went back 20 years later.
I think they went later and
Did they really?
And they actually came back and said, here's what happened with the kids as far as the results, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's a full longitudinal study,
it was,
not just
it was pretty long, right?
I did not. Did you realize that? I totally didn't realize
I didn't
that.
know it was that long, but I wouldn't doubt it.
I'll find more details really fast. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that they looked at it and there was some correlating information, like those that waited versus didn't and what they accomplished later in life.
Well, go ahead and look that up because I'm really, really, really curious about that. And I'll follow up with you and say, yeah, we want to do a segment on factors that really affect your levels of willpower. And understand that external factors do influence your internal experience and ability with willpower. We've said it's limited and it can be drained. And this is actually one of them.
And maybe that's something that we can nurture in people at an early age.
It would be interesting to do the marshmallow test with children and then put them through like a 12-week program to build some skills, some awareness of self, to purposely try to build willpower, and then do the test again.
I think that
and then
would
pull it into the 20-year later and see, like, how does this really progress? It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that is, to me, an authentic experiment. And,
Yeah.
And I think that would provide a lot of rich data.
I wonder why that hasn't been done for real. If it hasn't,
I don't know, but
because we do know that putting yourself in a spot of temptation drains your willpower. Now think about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to change your behavior with, we already did food, so I don't want to be weak and do food again. Let's say pornography, okay?
Right.
And you're really trying to avoid the compulsions. If you place yourself in temptation every evening at 8 o'clock, log on and then choose like.
But that's part of of recovery. You
It
said
is.
you don't go back to your hometown where there's the.
I was looking at that too.
Denver.
You don't go to a bar when you're in recovery from
And
alcoholism.
it is not Cheers.
And people will sit there and say, like, well, I want to test myself. And we substance abuse
Lead us-
therapists, we jump on that, right? Like, no, it's a bad
Lead us
idea.
not to temptation, but deliver us from evil.
It is a bad idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you put yourself there, you know, and same thing for instant gratification. You're giving yourself a challenge there. And that's purposeful and draining. So you got something, Neil?
So the original studies were done in 1970 to 72. They actually
Okay.
did 3 different experiments, and then they did a follow-up in 88 and 90. So they
72,
actually did
88, and 90.
18 years difference
With the same
between-
group?
Yeah, they
I
went.
did not
They
know
did.
that.
They
So
did a
it's almost
follow-up.
a generation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So they basically did it, and then 18 years later, they then followed up to say what happened with those kids or how
Very
things.
cool.
So it actually did. I thought there was follow up, but then you guys like I don't remember that. I'm like now I'm questioning everything about my life.
No,
So,
I
okay.
failed. You are on point, as often the case.
And I'm so glad you did that because I just knew enough to remember it.
Yeah.
And you. And
I was the same. I was in the same spot. I was interested in this. I was doing the show prep and looking at it, and procrastination came up as a factor affecting willpower. And I don't like that. I don't think I agree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Neil, we did the show on procrastination. He laughs. You can't see him on YouTube anyway. But, you were really feeling like this was right in line with willpower and internal, accountability and motivation and those types of things. And I was kind of realizing that maybe similar to willpower, interesting, again, spitballing that. Okay, I got like 5 thoughts in my head right now about this, and I can't keep them all straight and say them all quickly enough.
Mind.
We really found willpower as being a result of poor emotion management. Willpower with poor emotion management can be drained so that it isn't a characteristic of a person. And I really reframed doing that show about procrastination, and I'm realizing right now that this is the same thing as willpower, why you and I get really frustrated with that statement that's made about people. This is not a characteristic. This is, I think, Neil, as you accurately said, a skill or an ability that you have to exercise because it will always grow or weaken. So I don't like procrastination being a factor affecting willpower. I actually think it's the same as willpower that you have to build. What do you think?
Procrastination is a side effect of having poor willpower. Honestly,
Oh, wow.
it's the
Interesting.
procrastination doesn't play into willpower. It's if you have poor willpower, you're gonna procrastinate more. You're putting things off. You're not doing the things you need to. To me, a procrastination is a side effect or a symptom of poor willpower in certain areas.
You don't think it's also an aspect of anxiety in terms of like
Absolutely.
a
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
Anxiety affects it, which is, we're saying the same thing in a different angle, because willpower is controlling your emotions, managing your internal experience, all of those things with
Which you have to work on.
internal locus of
Yeah,
control.
right? What's that, Neil?
It's I forgot. Dang it. Go back to recording. I don't know. What did I say?
Hey, you were brilliant.
Thanks.
You were marvelous.
We don't know what you said that got overtalked there, but it was brilliant to say the least. All right, I'll move on because of time anyway. Decision fatigue is an interesting concept, though, in addition to temptation and procrastination, maybe gratification. The fact that if you put yourself Okay, when you're in a high-stress job position and you have a lot of pressure with a lot of decisions to make, how is the end of your day going to be related to your willpower compared to somebody who's actually in a cushy, kind of relaxed, more slow-paced, thoughtful position? I would say that person's going to have more willpower at the end of the day than somebody who's really crunching out hard decisions all day long.
Well, I was just thinking about World War II with the bombers, the bomber crews. They had like 25 flights that they had.
Read
to
an
make.
Amazing book on this, guys.
Right.
Go ahead, I'm curious.
And they had to, they would crack after several flights. A lot of times, if they didn't get shot down and captured, and it's because they had to make so many decisions all the time that quickly they burnt out.
It was life or death, also.
Life or death.
We lost a lot of airmen in those.
And so the PTSD amongst that cohort was just unbelievable. That having to deal with this and problems with substance or alcoholism, for example, or even behaviors acting out and doing things that would be they got in trouble with the military police, and because they had.
Send them to the brig.
Send them to the brig. But they were, these folks were just living on the line all the time.
And is honestly, again, it's an excellent example. Are we supposed to blame them?
Mm-hmm.
And it was mostly men, not women at that time. So I say those airmen, we can't blame them for being in that situation. Because you're right, it is a very stressful, tense situation,
and you have to do it again,
over,
and again,
and you had to do 20 missions to get your tour done, and only about 30% of the people, making up numbers, but that's fairly accurate, were able to do that. That's a lot of people dying, and so your agency of your own self goes down because your decision fatigue is loud.
And if somebody dies, and you somehow that you knew or felt. You would end up blaming yourself oftentimes. Well, why didn't I do this? Or how come I didn't go on this mission? My friend took my mission for me and died.
Another example of this is like, dude, we have American presidents and your leaders around the world. I mean, when they do a term or, they're in those positions, I mean, they age a lot, right? I mean, I'm really, really glad. I'll make a bold statement that Biden bailed out of the American presidential race because, I mean, it was pretty widely seen and understood that
he
too
aged
old.
rapidly. Yeah,
he aged rapidly. Now, I don't think he's senile terribly right now. I'll make that bold statement with a little bit of professional clinical ability to assess that. At the same time, 4 more years would have not.
That would have.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he'd been worn out.
And it's because of this decision fatigue, this issue with external stress, draining and draining and draining
You could have seen that with Jimmy Carter, and he was much
Was
younger.
it similar?
Very similar. He aged quite a bit in
his one term.
In his one term, yeah.
Yeah. It's tough to be in those tough positions, and these are the effects. Okay, so how do we strengthen this? Let's switch gears. Man, golly, is it already that time? How do we strengthen this? What do we do to increase our ability with willpower? Here's a quick list. Set clear goals and make them achievable. Practice self-awareness. Delay gratification. Build good habits, but gradually build them. Build self-esteem. Mindfulness, meditation. Avoid the drains on willpower, such as prioritize your sleep. Boy, that's one that we had to make an honorable mention, pause on. It's like sleep and willpower. How much do they combine?
Oh, excellent. Right.
If I don't sleep well,
what do they say? They use HALT, right?
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Yes.
And that's when you become most susceptible to a slip or a relapse.
And the idea is from AA, they say if you have any one of those 4, stop, halt, and get that taken care of. If you have 2, you're like in super danger of relapse, right?
What were those?
HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired.
Yeah, that's your wife when she's hungry. She gets hungry, then she gets angry. Then she's lonely because I leave her, and then she gets tired because she hasn't been fed. So
and she needs
You're screwed, brother.
Hangry.
Sorry.
So
No, she's well aware.
Snickers commercial there.
Exactly.
It's holiday.
No
Inn.
regrets.
You need a Holiday Inn, a sticker. Snicker. All right. So we've talked about these things for sure, but I think those are good quick review because you really begin to see, I think, through our conversation here that willpower really is something. There's some themes, right, that gets built, that can be drained, that you can't blame people for, that you have to give yourself grace for. And these are some of the ways that you do it, which is really emotional intelligence and good mental health. If you're in a therapy experience for a year, I hope that your willpower, as well as other things that you came to therapy, have improved.
That's interesting because it is a discipline to come into therapy in a sense. Isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, I think insurance companies make it kind of difficult too. Yeah, but we won't go there. But let's say that, I've started feeling better. Now I don't have to go to therapy.
Yep.
So
that happens.
Wait a second. It happens. And then you see them 6 months later or a year later.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a lot of repeat
business.
Customers.
Wouldn't it be nice that if people would hang in there even when they plateau, especially when they plateau, and that you feel like you only see a certain level of improvement, that they could continue on and break through that ceiling.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting as well, John? I'm thinking about as you say that, we have a very low average therapy relationship length. It used to be 3. I really would like another number that's more readily researched. I haven't come across that, but we've talked about it on a show. I don't think you know either, but the average length of a therapy relationship is 3 sessions or something like that. Some of that is because you get a lot of instant relief. But what you haven't built in is the regular regimen.
The discipline.
Yeah. And the willpower.
Yeah.
To continue progressing beyond that which
You need to challenge. You need to be able to do it step by step. You might even say, okay, I was feeling so good this week, and
I don't need to go anymore.
No, yeah.
But the fact is, you'll feel good after you exercise, but you need to exercise multiple times, regularly, and with routine.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So this is a discipline, just like any like exercise. This is emotional exercise. It's intellectual exercise. It's a spiritual exercise. Being able to do therapy.
It's interesting. I love the statement. I was thinking I was going to push back, but I'm like, I can't because I think I agree, but I hadn't thought about it that way. Think of it more, I would have previously thought of it more as an emotional process, but you're putting in added pieces there that I think I agree with, but we don't have time to go into it.
Well, I'm going back to my thesis. So
really? That was your thesis?
Well, part of it was spirituality in counseling.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more about that. All right, let's finish up here, though, with other factors that build your willpower. And we talked about temptations again, so obviously avoid them. Look, honestly, if you're trying to change your behavior with food, why would you have cookies in your house? It doesn't make sense to have chocolate chip ice cream and cookies sitting in your house when you're coming home from a hard day's work where you've made heavy decisions and you're tired and expect your willpower to take over with that. That's just not smart, right?
Right.
So avoid temptations. Set yourself up for success. That's huge. If then thought process to plan and to be prepared for situations that you're going to find yourself in as best as possible. Okay, listen. Standard around holiday time, substance abuse counselors have a conversation with their clients about holiday parties, holiday events, and all of the stress of the celebrations for people, especially that are new, but people that are well into recovery as well. You know those conversations, right? What do we tell them?
Well, what do you tell? I tell them to avoid those things, or if they have a backup plan.
A backup plan.
Yeah.
Have a soda or something to drink in your hand at all times.
If you have to go.
It is okay, particularly in early recovery, to not go.
You're right.
Right? Why do we go through these things? Because recovering addicts are struggling to remain sober and to be in a party where all this alcohol around you in early recovery, especially, is really, really difficult. Now, addicts can live a life and they can go to your, drunk party and Halloween, whatever. And I mean, they will maintain themselves because you learn how to manage that. And you're going to live life out there. They know how to do that.
And they have their sponsor. They have
tools
and their tool bag.
But particularly in early recovery and in holidays, people get tripped up. So we want to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
HALT, you mentioned. Yeah. That is being prepared. Monitored. Make sure you don't have hunger or anger.
But you could apply that if you tend to be an anxious person. Let's say you have high anxiety, which is a term we haven't used for a long time. But there was a Mel Brooks movie called High Anxiety.
We haven't used that term. You're right.
But some people have such great anxiety. Well, they're not able to speak in public and all of that. Well, you help them develop a tool kit. And so I have my clients visualize that they're literally pulling out a tool that would reduce
visually.
Mm-hmm. Visualize it.
Imagine, see it.
And my clients tend to do very well with that visualization.
Love it.
And they don't have the panic attacks. They don't have they still have some anxiety. You're never going to get rid of that, but managing it. They're more than victors in that.
It's awesome to see people that are growing and able to develop that ability to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a special thing that we do. Let me pop a question at you to see. Answer quickly. Don't think about this. Neil, you too. Which is more effective, group therapy or individual therapy? Go, Neil. Don't think.
I'm leaning towards group.
All right. No, don't think, Neil. Or, John.
Well, I think...
Yeah, it's going to be much more difficult for you and I.
No. My own experience with group therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. More effective for certain things.
Powerful, right?
Powerful.
The reason why I did us that way is because, when you are looking at having accountability, we've heard of an accountability partner. We have sponsorship in AA.
Buddy.
We have workout buddies. We have running groups. We have people in churches that support you in small groups for religious beliefs. We have political PACs, groups of people that do. When the whole thing is here, you will be more successful in willpower venues when you have things like our mastermind group, Neil. We have people that support us, that we're in a functioning group together. Iron sharpens iron. It's huge. Don't do this
church
alone.
Good, or synagogue or mosque. You go and you're with people and you get that support.
Right.
So
it is way easier to have willpower in groups that are like-minded and with a common cause. I'll make that statement too.
I'll say that those groups and those support help you make it through as you build your willpower, because you're not going to have it early on, and those are your systems and your crutches to help you get there. Your spotter at the gym. Yeah. They're those that until you can build up that willpower, you're having something. You're with like-minded people. They're people that can relate to you. They're going through the same things you're going through, and so it's going to allow you to say, I can do this. And then that, as you say, every time you say, I can do this, or I've done this, your willpower is going to slowly start growing and growing, because you're getting self-esteem, you're finding things are working, and then systems come in place. So as your willpower fades at the end of the day, because as we know, you get willpower fatigue as you make more decisions, you get tired, you're going to have those systems to help you make it through it. So I would say those systems help you until you have the willpower to do it on your own.
It's kind of like an airplane. The old Wilbur airplane here in North Carolina at the beaches, you need a little boost. They probably had some wind from the ocean behind them that helped support them until they were able to be in flight. So I'm just using a little bit of a metaphor.
You're the wind beneath my wings.
We have a song like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
like
Chris,
song.
Pick him up. Let me see you pick John up. No.
I need some group effort there, maybe.
Oh, got a question then.
Okay.
Why do we not do more groups here?
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've always done groups, John. I haven't done a group in quite a little while. It's just an organizational thing for me.
I used to do them with the PTSD groups for VA.
I think, it's something we should talk about because.
Well, do you have room for a group? You don't really
Yeah, it
have a
would
room
have
that
to be
can
like-
house more than like
We go to the
4
chicken
people.
bucket.
A good chicken bucket.
It's
Yeah.
the next door thing that we have
That's
here.
a-
You really got to say that if we're going around the world, John?
Yeah.
I mean, we could have 6 people in here, 7 people in here.
That's
there's another room that maybe
yeah,
isn't used.
That would
We
be a cramped.
use the lobby.
Or that other.
Yeah,
by
there's
DW's.
different options. Or shoot, we should just rent a room somewhere. But yeah, it's something we should look for because that's something that we haven't had around here for a little while that I've always done but haven't done for a while. Good observation. All right, we got to get out of here. We're running a little over. I didn't expect that with this topic, but this has been a fun topic because
It has.
it's something that I've formulated some different thoughts through this little chat. To be honest with you, man.
You need both. You need motivation,
Mhm.
and you also need willpower.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the motivation's good for the right now, here and now, but the willpower is something that you build over a long period of time. Did
And
I
it's
get that right?
sustaining.
And you have to have a system in place.
System in place.
And give yourself some
And
grace.
so you have the gears that go up, and you were able to
Exactly.
And give yourself some grace while you're building
Uh-huh.
this because you will fall and you will fail. Okay.
and accountability, so that if you plateau, you don't give up. You continue on. You have the help.
I think we had a little bit of a group consensus and a group conclusion. I hope that you enjoyed that. Use your willpower, build your willpower, know that it can be drained, and protect it. Take care, stay well. We'll see you guys next week.